In this clip, I'll walk you through a couple of tips to saving and navigating through the SD card reader on the Rossum SP1200. If you find the clip useful, give it a like, subscribe, and check out the channel for more quick tips. And if you're on Instagram, drop by for a look at TONELAB. For best viewing, I recommend watching this on a laptop or TV, etc. Put the clip in full screen mode and set the resolution to 1080p via the settings widget down on the bottom right. So, some of you, particularly those coming from the EMU SP1200, are probably coming to terms with how to work efficiently with SD cards. The most obvious difference between the old and new disk modules is that option 9 is no longer format/copy software. As on the Rossum, it's save all as/rename. And the most notable difference being that the Rossum supports folders and longer file names. If you purchased your Rossum new, you probably have this 8GB SD card, which is pre-formatted using the FAT32 file system. The good thing about that is it means it's compatible with your Mac or Windows operating systems, which can be really handy, as that allows you to share files with other Rossum users, as well as providing a means for backing up your SP1200 files on other storage devices or media. So let's have a look at a way we can approach the updated disk module. First, activate it. Now from this point, you can access any particular menu function by dialing in its number via the keypad. The lower half of the display now shows the SD card's current directory, and using the arrow keys below the display, press the right arrow once to skip to the next file or folder in the directory, or press the left arrow button to go back to the previous file or folder. Optionally, hold it down and you'll scroll through the contents in your current directory until you either reach the end of the list or let go of the button. Now, you can probably see these / at the end of the file names here. These are there to indicate that you're currently looking at a folder. Files don't have those, so the very presence of the / means you can dive into that folder by pressing enter, and then browse the contents of that folder. Further to that, if you browse to the end of the directory, you'll notice these 2 dots followed by a /, and that's the function to exit the current folder. So hit the enter button on the dots and / to back out or exit the current folder. And with this process, you can navigate in and out of any existing folders on your SD card. So if you think of it visually like branches of a family tree, the root being as far back as you can go, it may help the concept sink in a little easier, because it's really not unlike the folder structure you're probably already accustomed to on your Mac or Windows computer. So that's fairly straightforward for getting around your SD card, but what if you needed to create a new folder? Well, you can do that by activating the Setup module, access the Special Menu option by keying in 23, then browse to function number 27, which is Create Folder, and again, access that by keying in that number into the keypad. Now you can browse to any particular folder or even the root of your SD card directory using the same method as in the disk module with the arrows. And you'll know when you're at the highest level or root of your SD card when you can no longer see the 2 dots preceding the /. And you can see the heading asking create subfolder, yes or no. So if you've located the directory where you want to create your folder, hit yes on the keypad. Using the first fader here, you can scroll the list of letters, numbers and characters to give your folder a meaningful name. Once you've done that, hit the enter button to create the folder. Now when you return to the disk module, you should see the folder you just created, and hit enter to dive into it. Then potentially run option 9 to save all your samples and sequences. Then if you want to exit, just navigate with the arrow keys to the 2 dots followed by the / and hit enter. Now in the event you go to save the same file over the top of itself, you'll be prompted with the overwrite yes/no notification. By hitting yes on the keypad, you can either confirm the overwrite – Or if you decide not to overwrite, by hitting No, you'll be prompted with the rename dialog, where again, you can dial in a meaningful name using the first fader and scrolling through the various characters using the arrow keys to move your cursor left or right. Alternatively, if you erase all the characters in the name field, which you can do by zeroing each character, and then selecting the chunky left arrow, you can delete the file or folder instead. And just as a housekeeping tip, I recommend creating a handful of different folders in your root directory, perhaps a folder named Sounds, and inside there create another folder named Kicks, and maybe a folder for snares, etc. And maybe even a folder named Drum Kits, which you could create an 808 folder in, then store a collection of sounds from one particular drum machine, or one of your go-to drum breaks, etc. And also in the root directory, perhaps another folder for your songs, and in that folder create folders for each song project you work on. But all that is kind of getting into file management 101. Maybe you've got your own method to keeping stock of samples and sequences, which others might like to hear about. So feel free to drop any suggestions in the comments below. And I should also mention that disk menu options 1 through 8 require an already existing image file in your directory. The reason being that these options have been inherited from the original EMU SP1200 that read and wrote exclusively from a 3.5-inch floppy disk. But since the Rossum doesn't have a floppy disk drive, instead it uses virtual disk images which masquerade as physical floppy disks. And that way you can store the equivalent of nearly 5,500 floppy disks on one 8GB SD card. The Rossum also can read .hfe files if you know what they are, but if not, no big deal. Just use the Save All function via option 9, and that will create its own virtual disk image file with your sequences and sounds contained within it, and inside whichever folder you navigate it to. Afterwards, if you mount the SD card into your Mac or Windows machine, you'll be able to locate the virtual image file contained on your SD card as a .sp12 type of file. As always, be patient dismounting your SD cards, and the responsible thing to do would be to make frequent backups in case of any loss or damage to the SD card or the data on it. If you're wanting to learn more about the SP1200, then check out the comprehensive tutorial on the parent channel over at TONELAB, link in the description below. And there's more SP1200 quick tips, just like this one, right here on the TONELAB Quick Tips channel. So check those out also via the links in the description below. If you found the clip useful, hit like, subscribe, and if you're on Instagram, stop by for a look at TONELAB. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.